The death count is up to 120. So let's jump right over into that and get the updates for today.
Because as the sun rises over central Texas today, residents are still grieving the loss of at least 120 people across 6 counties after storms surged through the region nearly 1 week ago. A desperate search by air, water, land, and even horseback continues at this hour, as officials say more than 170 people are still missing. That number includes 5.
That's crazy. 170 people are still missing. They're trying to find. That is absolutely wild.
Campers and 1 counselor from the beloved Camp Mystic, where more heartbreaking stories of loss are revealed with each passing day. They include 8-year-old camper Mary Kate Jacoby. Her family says she entered the gates of heaven, adding she was tiny but mighty and full of love. Today, questions continue about whether more could have been done to warn residents ahead of those catastrophic floods. At a press conference yesterday, local officials defended their response and said those questions about how they handled it will be answered in time.
I believe those questions need to be answered to the family of the missed loved ones, to the public. We're not running. We're not going to hide from everything. That's going to be checked into at a later time. I wish I could tell you that time.
Folks, I don't know how many lives our KPD team saved in an hour in Kerrville, but I know that this tragedy, as horrific as it is, could have been so much worse.
Yeah, all right. Yes, he is correct. It could have been it could have been so much worse. But the questions they are asking are reasonable. Could there have been more to be done? Oh, good morning, Ashley. But could there have been more to have been done? It's a very tragic situation. But those are questions that have to be answered. Let's keep going into it.
This comes as new reporting from NBC News revealed that the former Kerr County commissioner described the county's flood warning system as antiquated all the way back in 2016, and that Kerr County officials then discussed warning systems more than 24 times since then. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has the latest for us from the ground in Kerrville. Priscilla?
Yeah, right now the search for the missing is continuing to grow more urgent and more desperate with each passing day. We know that officials have said that they have some very heavy machinery out here as they are trying to work their way through this very large debris. You have large trees that are down. You have vehicles that were pulled in to the river, also pieces of homes, according to officials. And so they are urging the volunteers who are out here who want to help the people who are searching to continue to do so, but not in the areas where they see that heavy machinery, because they are trying to handle these areas obviously very delicately in case they're recovering remains, or perhaps there is the miracle that they will find someone still who is alive. But I will tell you, officials have said that they have not pulled anyone out alive since Friday. Meanwhile, you also have the governor overnight releasing his priorities for the special session, which is set to begin later this month. And that, of course, at the top of that list are all of these issues around flooding. That includes flood warning systems, flood emergency communication, relief funding for this hill country area and these floods, and also natural disaster preparation and recovery. And officials are continuing to be pressed about this response and whether or not they acted appropriately in the hours as these floodwaters were coming in. But officials still not answering specifically many of these questions, only saying that right now their focus remains on so many of those people who are still missing.
NBC's Priscilla Thompson, thank you for your updates. And elsewhere in the Southwest, at least 3 people have died after flash floods swept through the mountain village of Ruidoso, New Mexico. Video shows broken trees destroyed.
So we also have to talk about the flash flooding that happened in New Mexico. So we can't forget that Texas is not the only one who was affected by this crazy weather and natural disaster. But I said this last time, Mother Nature is very scary. Very scary, and it has to be respected. Let's keep going into this.
Destroyed homes and muddy debris as rescue crews work to clean the wreckage. Officials say a 4-year-old girl, a 7-year-old boy, and a man aged 40 to 50 were the victims of yesterday's flood.
Do y'all see that? The whole home is flying away.
4 people in
Jesus, like a boat.
The community there remain missing. Ruidoso, though, is no stranger to natural disasters. Wildfires raged through the area last year, leaving burn scar in the hillsides and canyons that was then unable to absorb much of Tuesday's rainfall. A lot of weather happening around the country that we're tracking. White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Ken Thomas, is joining us now. And it's at the nexus of politics and those natural disasters that we should start this morning, because the president is set to.
Now that is absolutely wild. Let me back that up just a tad bit, because look, what
A
would you
7-year-old
do
boy
in this
and a man
situation?
aged 40 to.
What would you do? I don't know of anything I could think to do this, except for grab my loved ones and pray. That's all I can think to do.
50 were the victims of yesterday's flood. 4 people in the community there remain missing. Rio Doso, though, is.
All right, but we're gonna dive more into the flash floods in New Mexico a little later. But there's some things that people are talking about for the Texas flash flood that just a bunch of questions about who should be held responsible. And so we're going to get over into that. Let's jump right over into that.
I want to bring into the conversation right now a reporter at the Texas Tribune, Colleen de Guzman. She joins me. Colleen, thanks for being with us here. I know you've been all over this story, and I want to read from a piece, the first paragraph of which you wrote yesterday. You said this in your reporting: Kerrville's mayor said he was unaware of any help sent by the state to his community ahead of the flood, a day after Governor Greg Abbott said the state had, quote, assets, resources, and personnel in place 2 days before that flood tore through the hill country, now claiming 120 lives at least here. So are state and local officials on the same page about assets and resources or not, Colleen?
What I do know is that on Tuesday, Governor Greg Abbott held a press conference in which he shared that he had on July 2nd sent assets, resources, and personnel ahead of this storm, ahead of this flood. And according to the Texas Division of Emergency Services, of Emergency Management, we knew that they had helicopters ready, boats ready, personnel ready, but we just don't know exactly where they were. We're not certain that they were in Kerrville County or in the Hill Country. We know some were in San Antonio, which is just south.
The devastation left by the flood is wild. Jesus.
And so those were ready on July 2nd, but Kerrville mayor on Wednesday, the day after Governor Greg Abbott's press conference, said that he never saw those resources.
Yeah, we're just watching some of the video of the roaring floodwaters here. You know, throughout the last week, Colleen, amid the grief, answers.
You see, the road is destroyed. Oh my God.
Are being demanded about how something like this could have happened, what may have led to mitigating factors to make it not as deadly, or at least to prevent it outright the next time here. And you've heard from a lot of officials who are essentially saying, yeah, those questions are extremely important, but right now it's time for these communities to grieve. You're a reporter, you cover this area. Would you agree, though,
Yes,
that now is
exactly.
the time to start
Tragic.
asking these questions?
Yes, these are the times to ask these questions. And I think these questions were being asked long before this flood happened. I mean, this area is called Flash Flood Alley. And so a lot of these questions are long overdue.
She said the place is called Flash Flood Alley? Jesus. I don't. There's nothing I can say about that. That is crazy. Flash Flood Alley. Now, the first thing, not to get off rail, but the first thing that I thought about was Diagon Alley from Harry Potter, which is a horrible place. But Jesus, let's keep going.
Yeah, Colleen, I want to ask this. Has what the mayor of Kerrville said been accurate as far as, say, the warning systems in place, the aid that was deployed ahead of the flooding? There's a lot of questions about these warning systems, whether or not they were there. If they were there, were they deployed at a fast pace or not? Was there some type of delay here? What do you know about that? Where is your reporting taking you on that question, the warning system question?
So my colleague, Emily Foxhill, is the one who is covering mostly about the emergency response and the National Weather Service. And her reporting shows that the National Weather Service sent a couple alerts that night. So the first one coming at 1:14 a.m. On July 4th. And you can imagine a lot of people are sleeping at that time. I mean, this is Independence Day. This is when people are not on their phones, and this is a time when people are sleeping. And the next one after that was it came at around 4:30 a.m. But by that time, it for some it was a little too late to evacuate. And
Now let's talk about that. First alert came in at 1. Now if they're gonna talk about it later, but the first alert was just basically just saying be prepared that things could happen. At 1 a.m. Now I'm in my bed by let's say 10 o'clock. 10 latest is 11. That's rare though. Latest is 11 is very rare. At 1 a.m. would I have heard the alert? Now I sleep with my phone turned up, just because just if anything happens, somebody can call me. But it's always a question of will you wake up in the time you need to? Now you know they got those alerts that the weather service alerts that blare. Hopefully, I would hope that would wake me up, but you can never be sure. Jesus.
that was the first warning that was really rare. That one was the one that said to evacuate. The one at 1:14 a.m., that was the warning that was very much saying this could happen, get ready. And it was the 4 a.m. one that said that this was a very rare and an emergency and to leave their homes.
So, Colleen, what's going to happen when lawmakers return to Austin at the state capitol there and they have to grapple with some of these questions? Is that on the docket, on the agenda here about the response, getting resources to where they need to be in a timely manner, et cetera?
Yes, so Governor Greg Abbott has scheduled a special session, and he actually scheduled this long before this flood happened. But now this flood um, is now a top priority for the next 30 days, starting on the 21st, when state lawmakers do convene in Austin. And at the top of his list are talking about flood warning systems, emergency communications, national disaster preparation, and relief funding. So they will be discussing what kind of solutions are coming up.
You know, Colleen, I'm not sure if you've spoken with some of these survivors or even victims' family members about the warning systems in particular, but to your point, you indicated that this part of Texas is known for these flash floods, and presumably people looking on the outside in would assume that any emergency plan would be put in place, that it would be easy to implement, so to speak, because of the threat, because it is so constant. Are you hearing that from people down on the ground about why this was missed?
People are asking why there weren't sirens put in place. And my colleague Emily is actually working on.
Now I mentioned that. I mentioned that in the last episode. Sirens. I, I would think that they would need sirens out there everywhere. I don't care how loud they need to be. If someone's, I don't care if it needs to bust some eardrums. You have to have some sirens out there blaring. That's the. That's mainly the only thing I think can do. Maybe we. I don't know if they could have warned people earlier. I don't know, but at the end of the day, we lost over. I think it's 120 people. The count is 120 people that have died, and 170 people are missing. So, end of the day, we just need to keep all the families in our prayers. People in Texas in our prayers, and just if you need to seek help, go seek help. But let's keep going and finish up this video.
On understanding more about the sirens conversation and if they would even help. Because a lot of people come to this area, like you said, it is known as a flash flood alley, but it's also known for its beautiful rolling hills and greenery. And this is why people went during Independence Day to unplug and be with their family and not be on their phones and not look at alerts or the news. And so discussions about sirens right now we're still asking, would they have helped? I mean, these sirens, if they even alarmed and were in place the night of a thunderstorm, would people even have heard them? And there are also
That is a great question.
questions of, do people even have cell service at this time if there were more notifications sent to people's phones? So we
Yeah.
have more questions than answers right now.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point. That was somewhat brought up.
Yeah, yes. Let's Ashley, yes, exactly right. And don't go to the attic without an axe, because if you got to bust through the attic, bust through the roof to stay on the ceiling. But this is a whole tragic situation.
In some of these press conferences we have been listening to and airing live for our viewers about warnings you get on your phone. Yes, to your point, this was smack dab in the middle of the night. People were sleeping. Those little girls in their cabins at Camp Mystic, they were sleeping. But when you get alerts on your phone, do you hear them? If you hear them, do you heed them? And those are all of those questions, kind of the human psychology of it, which is just so tragic here. Colleen, lastly, where does your reporting take you next?
We're going to be looking at what happens this next special session. We're going to see where these conversations go, if there's even going to be teeth to these conversations of solutions. We know this will not be the last storm. I live in Houston, and we're always getting ready for hurricane season. Hurricane Beryl's anniversary was actually a couple days ago, and so we've been sitting and asking what has changed since we've had these natural disasters. We know these happen, and so it's still looking into what our legislators going to do to prepare for the next one.
You mentioned Hurricane Beryl, that was last season. A lot of this, at least the response of it, is being compared to Hurricane Harvey. Do you think that's an apt comparison? I remember that back in 2017. From what I understand, from what I've read, the number of fatalities in this natural disaster event has now surpassed that of Hurricane Harvey. Is that a fair comparison now, knowing that?
What I know is that Hurricane Harvey was this massive hurricane that just sat over the Houston area for days, and it created a flood. But I think the big difference is
For days? For days. That's crazy.
that, what happened last weekend was very rapid, violent, moving water. And so that's why people are being found miles away from where they were. Some bodies are being found, dozens of miles from where they live. So I think that's a big key difference in talking about the difference between Hurricane Harvey and what happened this July 4th.
All right, Colleen Diggers.
Now that is absolutely insane. Like I said, we need to keep everyone in our prayers, because it's a whole tragic situation all around. But I do want to say, it's tragic, but I've seen some people politicizing it. And I don't want to show any videos of people, but some people are saying that Texas deserved this, that they deserved what's happening to them. And they bring up Trump and all the Democrats versus Republicans, but how can you say that little children deserve to be swept away in this? Does anyone deserve? It doesn't matter who you are, who you voted for. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all people. We all live in America. We all live on the world. There's no reason we should be saying that someone deserves to go through a natural disaster. It's sickening, very sickening. But those are the updates that I've found so far for the Texas flooding. Like I said, always, I'm gonna keep everyone updated on what I'm seeing so we can talk about it, because we have to review the world together, like I always say. But all right, everybody, remember, this is AC Reviews the World. Remember to like and subscribe.